Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Cross Commission podcast. I have episode 166 up here. I promise you, we have done more than 166 podcasts together. Um, the real number we may never know.
It's like,
But it's many. This is year 10. So, 11 actually. But 10 years, year 11, I guess. It's many. But y'all keep listening and y'all keep enjoying. So we're gonna keep doing it.
not old, but the Potomatic page used to have like the actual total number, and then our own Cross Commission podcast episode number. So you're absolutely right. There's probably like 400.
I mean, at least the Potomatic one, it like deletes after a period of time.
They're like, who are these guys? Are still uploading?
Here we go. College Crosscast on. All right, this is April 15th, 2021. It says episode 208.
My God.
So we're 100% in the 400s. There's some old ones on here. The COVID ones, that's just hard podcasting. Yeah, these are some throwbacks here. This is pod number 2 of 2026. It is our second conference preview pod. The last one had some good numbers on YouTube. Y'all were interested. It was got some good reviews. It was a good show, I think. And I think this one's going to be even better. We got a lot of interesting teams, conferences to talk about here. We're going to look at the Big East. Really interesting year in the Big East, I think. Trying to bounce back from probably the worst year the conference has had since its creation in 2025. A10 has a new member in Delaware, and then the Patriot League, which has certainly been an interesting conference to follow in the 2020s, but definitely has some good teams, interesting storylines. Safe, before we dive in, anything new, news lacrosse-wise? Oh, I mean,
That's because the Eagles losing. Yeah.
You said it, not me.
But we did just fire Petula. And just like, it's like when they took down the Saddam statue. Like, there's just. It's like when they liberated, the Netherlands. The Dutch people were just like kissing American soldiers, like all over. Just. American soldiers throwing chocolate into the crowd. That's what it's like in Philadelphia right now on Broad Street.
Jesus Christ!
I mean, that game was like. I know. I abide by the Nazar Accords. I signed it. I willingly signed it, and I haven't been abiding by it. So, but I can observe or share some of my observations. It was not whining, which is against the Nazar Accords. For 5 years.
5 years, and remember, it resets upon winning.
Yes,
the clock continues rolling.
And I hear you. I'd rather take the win and keep my mouth shut than being able to whine openly on Twitter. It was just just excruciating. Again, it's not like I'm.
It was really
football ways, but it was really like bad. It was painful to watch. Like I was just joking around with some of my friends and before I got on, and it was like. We were thinking about McDaniel. I was thinking like maybe Dable, or I would love McDaniel. It's just like I know him and Benjo had a bit of a thing in Miami, but I was like Dable with Coach Jalen at Alabama, and they did good with the Buffalo. And then I was just like, honestly, I just need someone who would just get 25 points. Jake, there were 6 games this season where the Eagles lost and the opposing team scored 24 or fewer points. And it's just like, it was just maddening. And it's just like, we were just something was off. Like, I mean, it's easy to just throw the coach under the bus, which we obviously the organization did. But yeah, it's just weird, especially coming off of the Super Bowl with all that talent. It just like was just an odd season. It just
It's just
yeah.
so.
I'm actually happy it was over. Like one of the things, like it was like that Avengers scene where Thanos sees his daughter, the child daughter, when she was a child. He's like, did you accomplish it? He's like, what did, yes. He's like, what did it cost? It was like everything. Just having the season over, I was like, what did it cost? Yeah, a chance of a back-to-back Super Bowl, but it was worth it. I just could not watch another game of that offense.
I work with an Eagles. I mean, I work with a couple Eagles fans. It's too many, but you're enough. You're plenty. But I work with a couple. One guy who's taught next door to he teaches next door to me. One period on one class. He's an Eagles fan, and I saw him walking in the other day. On Monday, I saw him walking in, and I was like, "Tough loss." And his first immediate response was, "I don't even like football."
Yeah. I was like, why am I watching this? Like, and I had to like work harder to watch games this year because like, and I cut the cable. So I was like, sometimes I go watching it at a bar. Like,
that was me in like episode 8 of Landman season 1. Why am I watching when they hit the nursing home? It was like, why am I watching this?
Oh, that was. Listen, you know me. I'm an Ali Larder fan. There's like a wide swath of men around my age group where Ali Lauder, she meant something, Jake. And she still got the fastball. But yeah, there's some seeds there. The daughter, the lad matter, just like, well, do we really need this? So, like, couldn't we just have him go to another like ring that blew up? But I love the lawyer. You know me. I mean, just because of who she is. But she's like a hitter. But yeah,
it's just so. Oh God, I don't even think it's like nothing really happens. Like it's like he's an oil man. He never seems to be on the oil field. Like, isn't the whole thing of it's like about oil? None of this seems to be about oil.
No.
Oh man, he's a land man. He doesn't ever seem to be on land.
It's like, what do you do during the day? Actually, Billy Bob. I mean, he cranks the Billy Bob up to like 10.
He's awesome, but like,
you can ask him like, hey, how you feeling? He's like, well, the dog don't hunt, every now and he hunts when he needs to. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God. We are 18 days from games. Games are starting to be populated on ESPN Plus and Big Ten Plus. I believe Johns Hopkins and Robert Morris is going to be on ESPNU that first Saturday. Probably the earliest date ESPN has ever broadcasted a lacrosse game, January 31st.
I know you always mock me whenever I say like, that economic impact of lacrosse. I'm like, I always think they won that January, so that extra month of ESPN Plus subscriptions. Like for me, now I just kind of time it for the season, but now I have to get the January to get those games. You need to get one more month.
Can't you get it January 31st?
That's what I was thinking of that, but I think it's maybe start that day, so I maybe I get charged for that. Or I was thinking of like just try to watch it where I can, and then just do it February 1st. But for the culture, I'll sign up early. ESPN, they'll get an extra.
Don't we have an account? Like you just use Well,
for the longest time, because I had that cable, like I would just do that, and then I eventually had to get Plus because some of the games just.
I think we have a Plus, like a Group Plus account. I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know if it has like simultaneous streaming, but I know like some of them, like BTN, only allows you to. You'd think BTN. I mean, if you're gonna charge however much, I mean, it's not that bad, but still, if you're gonna charge like $15 a month, you could do like could allow multiple viewings.
But yeah, January. Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
18 days. Practices started last week.
I can't wait for the first game to be on like MLK weekend. It's just gonna be like,
oh my god, dude, just stop. For now, this is basically this is the earliest they could possibly play. They really couldn't go any earlier.
I always felt maybe it was like really super early February, but I remember one time, wasn't it like an Ohio State game that was in January?
There was a Denver-Utah game
Okay.
during, I think, one of the COVID seasons, 2020 or 2021, that was like January 30th. They started like a week before everybody else.
Yeah.
This is the earliest they can go because they can't start practice until what, January 6th or 7th?
Yeah.
So this is basically the earliest it could be. It's just, yeah. If I could fix anything, this is the number one thing I'd fix. Start in March. Everybody should get to play a game in May. And you should shoot for really, multiple home games. I just think of how many, of these great kind of experiences we talk about just it's not amplifying, like Homewood is awesome in, late or basically all of April really. But last year Hopkins had like 2 home games after like March 17th or whatever, the middle of March. And, in Maryland, you're just kind of rolling a dice with the weather that time of year. Virginia, same deal. Never play night games anymore in Virginia. I don't, it bothers me. Their whole thing is like Klockner Stadium at night. It's like you never play night games at Klockner Stadium. Like, what's the deal? I don't know. But that's a different topic for another time. I don't think there's been any news lacrosse wise. I don't think everything's just been kind of low key. Still kind of waiting on, kind of how it is that like that week right before games or that first Saturday, you get like the injury list. This guy's out injured for 3 months. What happened? It's like a match unit. The first report like 10 a.m. on Saturday. It's like 30 guys injured, but it's quiet for now. So hopefully that's hopefully it stays that way. See, I did some interesting this is something I thought would be interesting to discuss maybe a little bit. I ran the numbers on this on Sunday. And it was about the preseason because I was finishing up my top 20 poll. I think all of us have our top 20 polls finished. It'll probably be coming next week, just as a heads up. Brian's got the artwork made and everything, so we're ready to go. But I was looking at past preseason top 20 polls and kind of trends with, kind of teams making the tournament, missing the tournament. I tweeted this out, but I think it's interesting to think about. Going back to 2015, which is, I think, it's a good kind of starting point for like a modern sort of period of time in lacrosse. On average, 2 teams, so it's 23 total since 2015, but on average, 2 teams that are ranked inside the preseason top 10 go on to miss the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That's 20% of the top 10, on average, goes on to miss the NCAA tournament. One team, on average, just finishes the season unranked. Outright. Last year, this was, it was like the entire, there's just blood everywhere, the back half of the top 10. 4 preseason top 10 teams last year ended the season unranked. And 3 of them had losing records. Virginia, Hopkins, Yale, and then Denver, I think, finished 7 and 6. Those 4 top 10 teams last year preseason just missed the NCAA tournament entirely. On the flip side, the reverse, 8 of the last 10 years, one of the teams that made the quarterfinals was unranked to start the season. So 80% last 10 years, a team that was not ranked preseason made the quarterfinals. In 3 out of the last 10 years, one of the final 4 teams was not ranked to start the season. Now, this hasn't happened the last 2 years, though Richmond was ranked 20th to start the season last year, made the quarterfinals. But As recently as 2023, we had Penn State go from unranked to making the Final Four. Princeton was unranked in 2022 and made the Final Four. And you kind of have I had some notables here.
Do you have where Cornell was in 2022? Were they outside top 10?
Outside the top 10 for sure. I think they were like 15th or 16th, I want to say.
That bolsters, your point, but
I mean, all the Ivy League teams were ranked lower that year.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, 2022 in the preseason, Cornell was ranked 17th, and Princeton received votes behind. There were like 6 teams that received more votes than Princeton going into 2022. Yeah, Cornell was ranked 17th. Penn was ranked 11th. Yale was ranked 7th. 2022, there were 4 teams, 2022 that were ranked preseason top 10 and did not make the NCAA tournament. I actually think that might be more. I think I miscounted on that one because 2022, Carolina was ranked 5th, missed. Rutgers was ranked. Oh no, Rutgers. That was Rutgers Final Four year. What am I thinking? I miscounted that one. Carolina was ranked 5th and missed. Loyola was 8th. And hang on, actually, I was looking at week 1. Syracuse got into the top 10 after like the first week. That obviously was Syracuse missed the tournament that year as well. 22, UNC and Loyola were coming off Final Four and quarterfinal seasons. They were ranked inside the top 8 and missed. This is the way back, but it's probably the best example. The 2012 Loyola team was not ranked in the top 20 to start the season and went on to win the national championship. So I think it's worth thinking about as if you're doing your preseason poll or when you think about these things. As we always say, it's not the last season; it's an entirely new year, and the odds suggest that one of these teams, or a couple of these teams, are going to seriously underperform, and someone's going to seriously overperform. Now, I am interested. I'll do a little, kind of spoiler here, I guess. In our preseason top 20 poll, every ACC team and every Big Ten team was ranked. That's half the top. That's more than half the top 20. There were 3 Ivy League teams who got ranked. That's 14 teams. If you go back to 2015, 16, 17, 18, that kind of period of time, you usually had maybe 2 to 3 Big Ten teams you could count on being ranked. Michigan wasn't in the picture. Rutgers usually had good teams in that time span. Ohio State was kind of up and down. Penn State took them, once they got going, they were there, but took a couple years. The Ivy League, that was kind of a low point for the Ivy League. Princeton was struggling. Brown came up and then went back down. Penn could be up and down. I wonder if we see less of this as the more these kind of ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League teams have just kind of separated themselves from the pack a bit. It's like if you're looking for a team not ranked in the top 20, probably not going to be ranked in the top 20 to overperform, who are you picking? The obvious ones to me were Denver, who was a quarterfinal team or Final Four team just 2 years ago. It kind of has a track record. And I do think we'll talk about them tonight. I do think they're kind of primed for maybe a bounce back type season. And then Yale, which is a program with Final Four national championship pedigree, it's now going on, I think, 2 seasons in a row they've missed the NCAA tournament. 3 seasons without an NCAA tournament win. Lot of talent going out the door, but maybe that's needed. New additions to the coaching staff. So those are 2 I think we kind of look at, both national champions, in the last 10 years. I think those are the teams you look at as like, okay, if someone's going to kind of make a jump, those are probably the teams. But after that, it gets kind of more difficult, I think, to see kind of where, in our poll, 22 teams got votes. not a lot. Now I think that'll change as the season goes on. I think we'll get more teams kind of included in the top 20, but I do think the top. It's interesting. We talk about this a lot. When we used to do the poll, kind of the late 2010s, 2017, 18, 19, early 21s, it used to be really hard to do the top 20 because once you got past like 15, you were kind of like, you kind of just throw sort of darts at the wall. I don't think it's hard really to do the top 20 anymore. I think the top 20 is stronger, but I think the top 20 is like separated from 21 to 25. I think like there's a stronger 20, but it's kind of aligned with a separation of like it used to be. I think teams 16 to 30 were kind of all in a bundle together. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's kind of led to a gap between that top 20 and everybody else.
Power conferences, just like kind of rising tide lifts all boats, but power conferences are the ones with the nicest boats. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
strong.
That's 6 Big Ten for ACC 10. We have 3 Ivies with Yale at essentially 22. So then that's 4 more teams if you're expanding, but 3 actual teams there, so it's 13. Then kind of have like the outlier teams that are independently strong, with the Georgetowns, Albany's, Richmond. Yes, really kind of doesn't leave much room for teams to kind of make that leap. If you're not already part of a power conference or like the standard bearer for one of the mid-major conferences. I mean, I would say maybe but Albany's probably going to be too good.
Yeah, I think Albany's going to be in the top 20.
Yeah,
maybe towards the back end, but I think they're definitely going to be in the top 20. I think Towson will be there. I think Albany will be there. Loyola's another one. I mean, they're coming off a terrible season, but they have the pedigree. I feel like there's got to be some sort of bounce back, just sort of natural regression. They're bringing back a bunch of their players. So there's some teams in there. That's 3 national championship winning programs right there. Denver, Loyola, Yale. So it's possible among those. We got a couple tonight. Look, Denver, Loyola we'll talk about. Delaware was a quarterfinal team a couple years ago. So that's kind of teams off the top of my head I'm thinking about have been recent, success.
Oof, yeah.
Anything else on that too?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of anybody who could make a leap. I mean, I'm just looking at DraftKings. They don't have Rutgers or Princeton, because I'm in Jersey. But after the first 18, and then if you include Rutgers and Princeton, which are probably above Denver and St. Joe. 1, 2. So teams with the worst odds out of those top 20: Penn plus 5,000, BU plus 7,500, Towson plus 7,500, Dartmouth plus 10,000. The BU's one. The Raiders.
We're gonna talk about it. That was one of my questions. The Connor brothers leaving Colgate to go to Georgetown. I had this. I was going to talk about that kind of impact. That is, where do I have it? 89 goals and 168 points walking out the door. Tough to replace if you're Colgate. I had a great year last year, but yeah, that's really tough. I think that loss is pretty, substantial. I mean, I think it's maybe some of the most, especially because those guys I think have like 2 more years to play. I think that's just probably substantial hit as a team's taken in the portal in a while. I think if you have those 2 back, 100%, they're in the mix to win the Patriot again. But you lose those 2 guys, that's brutal. I'm actually looking here at some of Maryland plus 600, Princeton plus 800. Goes Maryland plus 600, Syracuse plus 700, North Carolina plus 700, Princeton plus 800, Notre Dame plus 900, Ohio State plus 1,000, Cornell plus 1,100, Georgetown plus 1,500. Rutgers is plus 7,500 alongside BU, and Towson. St. Joe's is plus 5,000.
Yeah, so I guess.
I mean, listen, as we talked about before, there's a wild world of college. It's, who knows what goes on out there of college lacrosse betting.
So they have 10, I guess, better odds than Rutgers.
Yes, I don't know about that, man.
There's some more people like who have faith in Ray as much as I do.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's Yale plus 4,000. Interesting odds on the conference. You can pick the conference tournament winners, which that's a wild. Syracuse and UNC both plus 270. Georgetown is minus 175. They are the only minus bet to win their conference tournament. Like everyone else, like Syracuse plus 270, Maryland's plus 145, Princeton is plus 125 to win the Ivy. Georgetown is minus 175 to win the Big East. Hard to blame them. I mean, it's 7 in a row now for the Hoyas. But that is where our conversation will kind of begin tonight. We're looking at, I guess, call them high major, mid major. I mean, I think last we said mid major, kind of those are maybe low major leagues. I think high major, and you got the 3 power, P3 so to speak for lacrosse. The Big East, the A10, the Patriot. Really interesting leagues. I think to kind of spotlight in 2026. Can these leagues close the gap to the power 3 conferences? Those 3 leagues have really kind of dominated NCAA tournament sort of performance and seeding over the past couple of years. 8 out of 8 NCAA tournament seeds last year were Big Ten, ACC, Ivy League schools. It was 6 of 8 in 2024, I believe. 2022, 23, I think it was like 7 of 8. So these teams those 3 conferences have really kind of separated themselves, especially with kind of the bottom of the Big Ten this decade and the Ivy League improving as well. I think that the Patriot League is probably the league I would say that's been hit the hardest in the 2020s. I think the Patriot League in the late period of the 2010s was right there with the Ivy League as the 3rd strongest, and they usually would get about 2 teams into the NCAA tournament. They haven't got 2 teams in the NCAA tournament since 2021, where that was, the crazy Loyola Patriot League championship game gets canceled, and then Loyola gets in, and Army gets left out. I mean, they had a lot of teams that had a case the year. Army got left out.
The Patriot League kickback.
So since then, it's in the last 40 years. I mean, Army's had the team maybe but has been only won the conference tournament once the last 5 years, which seems insane considering the level of talent they've had, the teams they've had there. I don't think the 2020 has been particularly kind to the Patriot League. The A10 is the emerging conference, and like the A10, you could argue, I think, is right on the level of the Patriot League now. I think it's pretty, right there, especially with how much Richmond's climbed. Loyola, of course, has fallen. The Big East is coming off a really rough year last year. And I mean, Georgetown won the league as a AQ or bust. Like, Georgetown was not going to make the NCAA tournament if they didn't win the Big East tournament. And they did, but the Big East was going to be a 1-bid league. The Big East was kind of consistent. They're a multi-bid league. In 2016, 2017, 2018, they got 3 teams in. A couple of those years, Denver lost the Big East tournament, and that got a team in. And of course, Georgetown just had a vice grip on the conference tournament for years now. Only 2 teams in the last 7 years, the Big East has only got 2 teams in twice. 21, 23, 24 rather, and 21 and 24. So I think just kind of interesting sort of shifts and things to look at with these leagues. Safe, where do you want to start tonight? What's kind of the first question that comes to your mind? What are you kind of thinking about when you're looking at these leagues?
I mean, I guess we just can kind of start talking a little bit about Patriot League. I guess mine is, I don't want to be overly pessimistic, but are they structurally set to perpetually be almost trending towards our lower mid-major groups that we said before? Not quality of institutions or anything like that. I just meant like now with NIL, a lot more open transfer market, proliferation of not just scholarships, but, revenue sharing. Will the gap between the Patriot League and the other conferences that allow this just continue to grow, and the size of the conference limiting their ability to consistently schedule enough out of conference games to kind of really be in the mix come selection Sunday? Like, literally, would there need to be like structural change, or like how the conference handles its own business, or allows athletics to compete, not just to have a competitive bounce, but just to get somewhat within striking distance of what the offer of the car. I'm not saying like they open an NIL and transfers, let everyone redshirt, like do what every other, but like some kind of slack eventually. Either the two divisions for the conferences or allow teams to have more diverse scheduling.
I don't think that's. I don't know if that's the problem anymore. Because I mean, the A10's got 7 teams now, so they're playing 6 conference games. 6. I mean, 6 versus 8. That is 2 more slots, but I mean, all these conferences are kind of, the CAA plays 7 or 6 conference games too, I think. Obviously, it is a difference compared to the. I mean, the Ivy plays 6, don't they?
Yeah, 6 because
yeah. So I think it's more about. I think it's the transfer portal, which just limits your ability to. I look at something like Loyola. Their face-off play in the past 3, 4, 5 years has just been really just untenable as far as if you want to be successful at the level that they're at. Loyola this past year ranked 52nd in adjusted faceoff percentage. They won 46% of their faceoffs adjusted for the competition. Loyola hasn't won better than that. Was actually a marked improvement over 24 and 23, where they were at 42%. Loyola has the last 3 years has not ranked in the top 50 in faceoff percentage. If that were a problem to that degree at Johns Hopkins or at Maryland, they would just go in the transfer portal and get a FOGO. Now that's not to totally excuse Loyola, because I mean you're still Loyola. You still play in Baltimore. You're in the state of Maryland. You should be able to recruit a guy at high school who can win 50% of his faceoffs. It's not to completely kind of again excuse it to that sort of to that degree, but you are in a tougher position when you are not able to just go out and grab, whoever you might want. I think a young guy, again, like a great example here is Georgetown. The transfer portal in college is really interesting because a lot of it is kind of grad student guys, Ivy League. Are the Ivy League kids really transfers? They've played they've graduated. They've played 4 years or 3, parts 4 years at a school. So, and that's what's been made up, a lot of the guys who have left. In a lot of cases in college lacrosse, it is mostly just, it's grad guys. which did happen before. The difference is that now they can kind of just leave with no. They don't have to sit out a year. There's no penalty, so the instant impact kind of is more felt for you know those players. But a guy like Liam Connor leaving Colgate as a sophomore to go to Georgetown, that's just different. Or the comparison is this is basically
Chris Gray.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, like that's it's the Chris Gray thing.
That's still not good. You're right. I mean, you don't.
No, it's not. Yeah, like I mean,
feeder system to like
yeah,
programs.
like it's not. I mean, BU's been really successful, but what if they had Chris Gray for, as you just mentioned, Colgate? They made the NCAA tournament. They almost beat Penn State, and now your two best players just walked out the door. Rory Connor is the senior, like he's a grad year, but Liam Connor, like that's 2 years. Like he's gonna play for Georgetown for 2 years, and I think he's a first team All American type caliber player. that's so it's that element of it. They can't go and get guys, to supplement. I think that's a big part of it. I think you mentioned this in the last pod. Early recruiting, I think is taken away. Loyola was a big school that benefited from guys who were late bloomers. I think a lot of these type schools are schools that that's where they kind of made their hay, is with guys who are sort of overlooked, but you get a good education at a lot of these places. It's a good, you get to play competitive lacrosse. And then, I think the last thing you mentioned, like the scholarship thing. How many of the schools in this league are, I'm almost certain that not every school in this league is fully funded at 12.5. I like
100%. 100%.
So, and then you've got Big Ten schools funding 28, or a Big Ten ACC schools funding 28, 29, 30 guys. And I don't think that's going to slow down. Like, I don't think we're going to be like, if the money's there, if, they feel like they're getting a return on, I guess the investment. I don't know what the return on investment exactly qualifies as, but look, it's these big major programs have parents who have a lot of money. In some cases, a lot of money. And if they want their kid to be in a good team, they can do that. So I think all of that is, you hate to kind of, doomer, but I don't see here's what I'll say. I think there's a path, but it requires a lot of things to align at the right time. Loyola absolutely has to get back to some form of being a consistent top 20 team. That's the program that you're still in Baltimore. You're still in a state with a lot of talent. You're a program that has a long history of success. That's obviously won a national championship. Is it going to be what it was with Pat or in the 2010s every year? Probably not, but it can't be what it's been the last couple of years. You got to at least be in that top 20 mix. They play good. They play Maryland. They play Hopkins every year. It's got to be. They play Georgetown. So they still schedule some really good outcomes teams. That's got to get back to a different level. And then the other one, Army's been really good for 5-6 years now. Army is a top 15 quality type team every year. Even if they're not winning the conference tournament, they're still a really strong team. So I think it'd help if Army could maybe just more consistently get in the tournament, get a chance to make some deep runs. But then their rivals to the south, Navy. Navy's got to get rolling here. If Army can do it, why can't Navy do it? All these things we mentioned about these schools, like Army and Navy are sort of separate to themselves. As tough as it's been for the Patriot League, it had been tough for Army. Making the NCAA tournament has, but they've got kids. They got tons. They got All-Americans. Army's had All-Americans for 3, 4, 5 years now. They can play with. We've seen it beat North Carolina 2 years in a row. We've seen it beat Syracuse. They demolished Yale last year. Like Army's got the dudes. If Army can do that, I know Navy's got dudes that are really talented. I know Navy can recruit. We know they've got the new lacrosse center, opening up in a couple years. If you had a 3-head at the top of Army, Navy, and Loyola, you got something there. You still got BU with Poli, who's doing really well. That's 4. Like, it's possible. It's like for this league to still, I think, with good coaching and player development, things like that, challenge those top 3 leagues, be tough. Like, are they going to get to Final Fours? I don't know. But I think it's possible for there to be success still. The thing is, you just need it all to come together. And right now, you've got Army functioning at its as well as it can. Obviously, they're leaving some results on the table at the end. But program health-wise is as healthy as it could be. BU, very much so healthy. You need Navy and Loyola to really get going. And I think that's kind of the key is Loyola, it got as bad as it could possibly get last year. It got bad to the point where, and we've talked about this, you kind of have to wonder, like, what's going on in the locker room? Like, what is, it's, we talk about this a lot with other sports things. Like, man, when losing sets in a team, a program, organization, whatever it is, once you let losing in the walls, it's really hard to get it out. Like that sets in there. It's rot. And when you go 3-10, or it might be like that's just, or you kind of start where they were last, 3-11, and you started 0-9. That losing is just that it's so hard to get that stench out. What's the old adage? Winning breeds confidence, but confidence breeds winning. Like that. The only way to turn it around is win, but where's the confidence to do that? Like, it feels like total detox is kind of needed at Loyola. And look, it had like major, Ben Arsdale out the door, some major staff changes that were undertaken by that program. It's got to be. It does feel like kind of, I don't say a make or break type year for Toomey, but I do, does feel a bit like if that didn't work, what now? Like when's it going to kind of turn around? I think similar for Amplo, in that you're at year 7 now. We kind of always say take out those first 2 years, the COVID and everything like that. Really, but since he's now had a full senior class since then graduate, and we can all kind of debate. I'm sure Navy fans have this conversation themselves a lot about like what is the ceiling, what should be at Navy. They just haven't really been in the conversation a lot in that conference. They're like 4th in the Patriot League every year. They don't make the conference semifinal like the last weekend of the conference tournament. They're not really a factor, and the talent ain't been the problem. I don't think. I mean, they've got highly ranked recruiting classes. They've had individual players who've been really highly touted, and I've liked a lot. Guys made All-American teams, and it just hasn't happened. New AD, as you said, the new lacrosse center kind of coming into play. Like, if not now, when? But I think that's the story in this league for sure. Is like there are the structural things you mentioned are not going away. I just don't see this league being like, yeah, you know what? Now we'll let everybody have transfer. Like, well, yeah, you guys, you can start handing out more scholarships. I mean, I guess they could. I just don't know if that's happening at these institutions, is what I should say. But in an individual program by program basis, I think if you had Army, Navy, Loyola, and BU all kind of rolling, I think you got a pretty dang good league.
Yeah.
Those are the 2, Navy and Loyola, that are clearly, I think, not fully living up to what they could be at the moment.
I'm so tempted to throw Loyola into the safe Makadu doctrine because there was 5 games where they lost by 1 last year. I guess some pretty good teams. I mean, Maryland lost by 1. Towson lost by 1. Hopkins was pretty good at the time that they lost to them by 1. But yeah, just a lot of winnable games that kind of like slip through their fingers. The Providence game, they lost by 1. So yeah, you're right. I mean, just saying Lafayette, that was kind of another one. So yeah, five games again. Ifs and buts or candies and nuts, as they always say. But then that goes from 3-11 to 8-6. Maybe get into the Patriot League tournament. But it's kind of a shame, just given how proud of a program that is. Seems to hopefully get out of funk. And the way you were talking about it, yeah, it was just like some of the strangest things have happened in the last few seasons. I still remember how they swept Hopkins in Maryland in 2023, first time ever for Loyola to do that, and then kind of just didn't really make any headway after starting the season 4-1. Kind of just kind of collapsed the rest of the way out there, but did make the Patriot League tournament and got to the championship game where they lost to Army. So maybe that could have been a tournament run in 2023. But yeah, well, proud program. Obviously a lot of history there. Proud alums. Just really hasn't been able to put it all together recently. Yeah, I was my little bit concerned with the Patriot League. Is this just going to continue on or potentially worsen? But you're right. If you can kind of get the big three cooking, then you always have like a BU who's been a pretty steady competitive team over the last 5-6 years with Poli. That's a pretty good conference.
Oh, for sure. I think the Loyola piece that's concerning is, and they do have a lot of talent coming back to this. If you look at actually in Lax Pros returning production, they're number 1 overall. In all points, like 97% of their points, 97% of their assists, over 3/4 of their games defensively. Coming back, they got production coming back at the faceoff dot, though. Again, they've been a really poor faceoff team. I think the thing that just kind of highlights, and maybe this is, it's tough to say. You could argue maybe you bottom out and you need that. Let's come back. We got all our guys back. Improve. We can take this group, make them better, and as you said, some 1-goal games. Get some luck going. Get guys playing better, feeling better about themselves. Across the board continuity. I do believe it's the old what's the Quint the always says, follow the senior classes to Memorial Day. I think to some degree that's a byproduct like of a different time in college lacrosse where there were fewer transfers and you really did have the build up to a senior class, restart, build up to a senior class. But that's still true. Like you still need, you look the last couple of years, I mean, this is true of all college sports. The best teams are usually pretty damn old. I mean, Cornell had 22, 23, 24-year-old guys last year. Notre Dame, 22. Maryland, like the best teams are usually pretty dang old. 22-year-old guys playing against 18 and 19-year-old guys is just different. Like it's
Indiana football.
Yeah, or what's the Calipari he was talking about? We got a lot of men with beards playing college basketball right now.
Who's a Rutgers coach? He's like, I want a guy who has got 2 kids in his 30s. He needs to pay a mortgage.
Calipari is like the guy using his NIL check for his first alimony payment.
Cal's really great.
Oh, he's incredible, man. So that's, I guess, it's still roster continuity matters. Guys playing together for a long time matters. You got guys who play together forever. That's different. The thing for Loyola that's tough is, I think the last couple of years you could kind of say, like, one thing really killed us. If you look at them in 22, they were not great on offense, but not bad. They were really good at the faceoff dot. Their defense was not good, but a lot of that was down to poor goalie play. The goalie play the last 3 years has been really good, and you could maybe say at different points the faceoff play has killed them. We just haven't been competitive at the faceoff dot. I think that's maybe an argument to a degree. 23 and 24. Defense is 27th and 26th in defensive efficiency. Offense is 32nd and 19th. If you're losing every faceoff, that's just going to take a natural toll on your defense, how many minutes they play, the offense, not in a rhythm, things like that. Last year, everything bottomed out. Like, they were 3-11 because they just were not good. Like, it just, you couldn't be like, we didn't win enough faceoffs. Like, true, you also didn't get enough stops, and your offense wasn't good. Like, it was everything. It was just a team-wide, complete cratering. Does that mean like, hey, all right, we just got to re-scrap it. We got a new coach, some new coaches coming in. We got to rethink things. Maybe that's what was needed to just really be like, we just got to do something different. Or maybe it means like, man, that's a long way to go. And I don't know if you're going to get there in one year, one off season. I think that's the thing that's kind of tricky to tell. Again, they bring a lot back, but it's really like you said for sure. Is there the safe doctrine of like close losses? Yeah, like there's a 1-goal loss to Maryland, 1-goal loss to Hopkins. Of course, that does feel like a bit of those teams paying the Ridley tax. If you play those, like this year, they got to go to Homewood and they got to go to College Park. Not great. But then you got in there, they lost by 12 to Colgate. I think what you mentioned. Like there's some in there that are just like not explainable. Like they're just bad. And again, that's what happens when teams 0-5 and like the season's like, yeah. It gets bad. Navy's another one. Like the talent I think is there, but they just ain't been good across the board in Amplo's tenure. At like just what is their calling card? They're not great on offense. Their offense numbers, in fact, have been kind of, to be quite honest, at times like appalling. I mean, like outside 3 straight years from 22 to 24 outside the top 40 in offensive efficiency. There's a lot of the upshot argument for them, I think, is staff continuity. We got Ken Brocher for his second year. They had Phipps come in and then leave, and Cottle was there for a year. But like Amplo's thing as the defensive guy kind of started that way, hasn't continued. Goalie play's been pretty good. Like what's this team's, what's their MO? What do they do well? I think that's not a great position for a coach to be in year 6 or 7. Where like I don't know what the identity of Navy under Amplo really is. That's kind of concerning to me. I like a lot of the pieces they have, but it's gotta show up in the win-loss column, at least the kind of performance column. Even though again, I like Matt Haley a lot. Jack Ponzi was a freshman, was really good. Willem Gower as a freshman showed a lot of a spark. So I like a lot of the players they have. I like Jack Flaherty a lot from the midfield, but it's just not showing up. I think this is a 2-horse race between Army. Here's the way of looking at it, I would say, because I think Adam mentioned this in our group chat, which is like I think it's a 2-horse race between Army and BU. That's the vibe I get. If you're talking the teams that just look primed, that look like those teams know who they are. They've got the talent. Army does lose Jackson Eicher, but they replaced Brendan Nichtern kind of seamlessly. They got a bunch of guys still there. Like Braden Fountain as a freshman had 35 goals. Plunkett really had a tough year. He shot, I think sub 20%. Yeah, he shot 17%, and he came in as a first-team All-American. That to me feels like obvious for positive regression. It's got to get better. Like a guy like that ain't gonna shoot. I don't know. I told myself for like 2 years Bubba Fairman was going to rebound shoot and never seemed to come back. He made up for it in other ways, but he'll be out there. His little brother Hill. They do lose some good pieces on the with Coletti and things like that, but they got Sean Byrne back in goal. You figure they'll be strong defensively again. And then BU, it's just like we give them credit all the time, just like a masterpiece of program development. Those guys they just churn out guys every year. It's a new set of dudes. Timmy Shanahan, the freshman, incoming sophomore. Those are the teams that look set up. However, if I flipped it to you this way, how many teams do you think couldn't win the Patriot League this year.
Could not.
Could not. If I told you this team wins the Patriot League, you're just gonna be like, no, not happening.
Okay. From least likely. Sorry, Crusaders and Bill Simmons, even though we want to get onto the ringer, the Crosse. Gotta go with Holy Crosse.
Agreed.
I think, Lehigh, Bucknell.
I think Lehigh. I think Lehigh could bounce. I mean, we talked about this with Scott, like Lehigh last year. I don't think they were that worse of a team than they were in 2024 when they made the tournament. I just think they were like a opposite safe doctrine team. Where like in 24 they won all the 1-goal games, and then in 25 it just all kind of. I mean, they lost. It wasn't just that. But like early in the season, 3-goal loss to Fairfield, a 1-goal loss to Richmond, 1-goal loss to Bucknell. I don't know. Like I don't think they were. Their defense was pretty similar. Was actually better. Face-off play was better. Goalie play was better. The offense took a big hit. That really struggled. I just don't think they were that much worse of a team. And I kind of feel like maybe this year sort of like it can flip back. Like maybe like this year they meet in the middle. Like they don't win the Patriots, but they're kind of in that top 4 or 5. I don't know. I think we've seen them do it. So like I think it's possible they could. I like Scudder. I think we both like Scudder a lot. I think they could. I think it's possible. Bucknell, I agree. Bucknell feels like a real, like if you're just spotlighting a program that's just the weight, like the kind of like tectonic shifts of lacrosse have just moved away from a program like that, it feels like Bucknell.
Yeah.
Just not going to keep up with the Joneses. Fedorchuk has been there a long time. Maybe it does feel like the last couple of years it's kind of maybe just passed, down the back end. Yeah, I don't. I mean, 5 and 9, they were basically goal differential -2 for the season. It's not like, I mean, they are a bit of a Dartmouth 2-goal loss, Hobart a goal loss, Holy Cross 1-goal loss, 1-goal loss to Loyola, 2-goal loss to Bryant, 3-goal loss to Navy. I mean, there's a lot of close games in there. I don't know, but I think anybody in that top 7 could win the league. If you told me like Colgate won again, I'd be really shocked. But like I've seen them do it. If you told me Lafayette pulled it off, like I mean, maybe.
That's how I wouldn't put it like all 7 together. I'd love your thought.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's not like all 7 are even.
But there's probably like 5 of that 7 who are like definitely possible, and then like the 2. Okay, if I'm going to pick favorites, I'm going to Army or BU, just program strength. But you're right. Like there's 5 teams in that, and including Loyola. That's why I think Bucknell and the Holy Cross kind of slim chance, but just give myself an out on that. But yeah, the rest of the 5, not including Army and BU, that middle 5, yeah, it could. There's not. You wouldn't say something that would surprise me. Lafayette wins it.
Lafayette, Riley Sullivan, a tough loss, but Lafayette's next top 4 scorers were freshmen. I mean, they're bringing it like I think they're a little undergunned talent-wise comparison to. And that's not to say like they don't have some good players, but I just think if you look at that of those 7, I think they're probably 7 out of 7 talent-wise. But that hasn't mattered the last couple of years. I mean, they've done such a great job. 10-win season 2025. 2023 was another. 23 and 24 were good. The building block years. I mean, they really, just kept that thing, and they played BU really close in the Patriot League tournament. So yeah, like I wouldn't. That's a good way of putting it. Is like Army and BU, I think for sure are a cut above, but that middle 5, if someone from that broke through, if we're sitting here the Patriot League Championship Sunday, and it's like Lafayette versus Army, sure, like, wouldn't rule it out. I think it's in the realm of possibility. All right, I'll continue on this line because I think it dovetails with this and kind of sets up where I'm going next. The Connor brothers, Liam Connor, Rory Connor, go from Colgate to Georgetown. I don't think Georgetown is being underrated going into this season. I mean, they're going to probably. I think they were top 5 in the USA Lax Mag poll. I think we have them. They're going to be top 5 in our poll. So clearly, there's belief in the Hoyas. I wonder though if and maybe like this just belief in the Hoyas, them being the top 5, is baked in with them adding those 2 guys. But I do kind of wonder if like the potential impact of what those 2 guys could have is being a little undersold, or maybe just like not quite. Maybe people aren't totally realize just how good those 2 guys were last year. Liam Connor had 90 points last year. Rory Connor had 78. Liam Connor was top 5 in the country in points per game and assists per game. Rory Connor was top 20 in the country in goals per game. Individual, like different, some more advanced stats. Liam Connor, 89th percentile assist to turnover ratio, 96th percentile assist rate in the country. Lax references expected goals added metric, which basically takes every play and kind of gives it a like plus or minus kind of chance to like your team winning. So like a shot is positive expected goals because there's a chance it goes in. A goal is obviously significant. Ground ball, if you take a penalty, it's less. Liam Connor was 98% in that. Rory Connor, 38% shooter, tremendous ground ball guy. And I just look at it as kind of a Georgetown team that obviously, again, like the number one thing they have to fix this year is the start. They got to start better. Give themselves a real chance to be in the mix for a top 5 sort of seed in the NCAA tournament. Last year, started 2-2, took some tough losses along the way, like lost 7-3 to Denver. At one point, had to go in as a AQ bus team to the NCAA tournament. If you look at what they have, the pieces they had coming back, some freshmen that really contributed on offense, Jack Ransom, Kevin Miller, Joe Caesar going to be a senior, some good offensive pieces. The strength of the team kind of returning was Ty Banks for his junior year at the long pole, safe guy Ross Prince at the faceoff dot, Anderson Moore in goal, like just kind of some key pieces. The spine of that team coming back was going to be really strong. The question mark was they lose Aiden Carroll and Fulton Bayman, their top 2 scorers, by a significant margin. Like Aiden Carroll scored 50 goals. That is 19 more than anybody else. 19 more than anybody else on the team. Fulton Bayman had 32 assists. Aiden Carroll had 27. That was 11 more than the next guy. Points-wise, they combined for 140 points. The next, you have to go down to like Georgetown's next 6 scorers to combine 140 points. So that was those guys' significant losses. Aiden Carroll, 50 goals, 27 assists, took 142 shots. Big time volume shooter, big time hitter. Rory Connor last year, 38% shooter, 50 goal scorer. Kind of almost matches Carroll's stats, like exactly to a T. Fulton Bayman, 31 goals, 32 assists. He was the conductor of the team. Liam Connor had 90 points, the primary assist guy on Colgate. Aiden Carroll and Fulton Bayman combined for 81 goals and 140 points. The Connor brothers combined for 89 goals and 168 points. They almost seamlessly replaced their 2 big losses. Like I think like the role they play can like just fit perfectly. Liam Connor will be the guy at X running the offense. His brother will be on the wing as the main shooter. It's like a seamless plug-in to what they like needed. And I think Liam Connor is the type of guy that Georgetown's really needed. And if you think about Georgetown's success that they've had, and like offense has often been the thing where we've kind of been like, do they have enough kind of like of the hitters. They have enough of those big time guys to really make things happen offensively. And what I would say is that they've had great players. Even going back to Dan Boudreau, good pal Jake Caraway, who was tremendous for them. Caraway fit a kind of similar mold, like big time goal scorer, big time shooter. Like he was a hitter. You just get the ball to him, and he could light up the lamp. They got Dordovic in 23, and Dordovic was like a supersized version of that. Just get him the ball and he could like shoot and dodge and make it happen. Had 65 goals. I don't know that they've ever had a guy that like you really do everything. Like he is the hub of the offense. That guy where you're just like, this is, everything revolves around this guy. The total threat. Can shoot it, can dodge, can pass it. That's just sort of like, this is our guy on offense that we can kind of run everything through him. I think he has that potential capability. I think that's on the table for a guy like that. He's got the talent and he's got the all-around game to where, again, tremendous passer, really good assist-to-turnover ratio. He can dodge. Like it's there for him to be that kind of guy. And that's the kind of guy I think that Georgetown has been missing in a way, is that sort of just all-around presence, all-American, full-team All-American type guy. Now, there's some caveats I'll add here. I don't think they're going to go to Georgetown and put up like 90 points. Competition, there'll be some difference. I mean, Georgetown's going to play a heck of a schedule out of the gate. They got Hopkins week 2. They got Notre Dame. They got Ohio State. They got Richmond. They got Cuse. Like tough teams going to be on the schedule. Additionally, there's very few teams I think that would be a more stark difference in style of play than Colgate and Georgetown. Colgate last year was 4th in pace in the entire country. They took 45 shots per game, and they had 44 possessions. Nobody had more possessions offensively than Colgate did. We saw their games. That Virginia game was like, it was like a basketball game. And they are absolute kamikaze up and down the field. It is all energetic all the time. 10-man ride. That's what they do. Georgetown on the flip side, 66th in pace. They took 41 shots per game, and they had 6 fewer possessions per game than Colgate did. So just by the volume alone, I don't see these guys putting up, those kind of numbers. But if they put up 60, 70 points, if William Connor puts up 70 points, I mean, that's big. If Roy Connor scores 40, 50 goals, that's huge. And I do think that's on the table. And I think that's just I think Georgetown's being, again, not that they're underrated, but I do the fit that these guys could have in replacing what they had last year and in being kind of what this offense needs, I feel seamless to me. Like it feels exactly what they needed. And you have to see how they fit in within the locker room and things like that. But Georgetown's always brought in a lot of transfers, and they've always done a good job with that. And guys love playing for Kevin Warren. I think that it's perfect as far as the fit goes and like the talent, what they need. And I think it could do big things for this Georgetown team.
Listen, you're not saying that this is a affordable, Michael Sowers to Duke, but I like your take on Liam. I mean, Rory, just looking at his
the Chris Gray is that's like the dream scenario. It's like, it's Chris. I don't think it's Chris Gray, North Carolina. I don't think he's as good as Chris Gray was, but that's like that's the ceiling. Is like the floor is 50 points. Or 60 points. He's the best player in the offense. We're a top 10 type team. I think the middle ground, though, is like, this is the type of player we've been missing offensively, and maybe he can get us to the Final Four. Like that, or like win one more game. Like that's Georgetown. At this point for Georgetown, we need to literally win one more game that we've been winning at that exact time of year. But I think, like this comparable, the ceiling in hope is like, maybe it's Chris. I don't think it is, but it's a similar sort of, archetype, I should say.
Well, I mean, Chris walked in with 111 points, 49 goals, 62 assists, 17 games. Liam, though, no slouch.
No.
It's like coming in with 39 goals and 51 assists in 18 games. Now your point with will they translate? Yeah, Rory, you could see some of the games last year against some of the non-conference opponents. Not that he disappeared, but one goal against Penn State, only one assist against Virginia. In the Army game, they did come in with 2 goals, and then in the
2 and 2
Army the tournament, they came up with 7 points, and Penn State, he had like 3 points. But Liam, I mean, the Penn State game to start out, he had a hat trick. Virginia game, he only had 1 assist. But the end of the season against Army, he had 8 points total. The regular season game, he had 4 points. The Penn State tournament game, he had 4 points with 5 points. Sorry, with 4 assists. That's not, that to me shows like, hey, he's at least competitive, can play against some of the tougher teams. And no, we're not saying Chris Gray 2.0, Michael Sowers redo. All of a sudden, he's coming to Georgetown, but going to be coming with his brother. Like, is already kind of have like a need for him. It's not like one of these like, we want him to come, but where are we going to fit him? Like, you're absolutely right. There's like a hole in the roster right now that he could there's a Liam Connor hole in the roster right now that he could fit right in. It could be really exciting. Yeah. Like we saw how much they did with Djordjevic in terms of lethality, just being the team that you can kind of see that they're going to be able to put some points up there. But, the Connor brothers together, you can already see it, kind of like, Connor to Connor type of, maybe hearing that a lot during the year. Yeah. It may be like one of the undersold or talked about stories of the off season, given, transfers are some of the biggest talking points in lacrosse the last 5 years. So yeah, this could be the most impactful one, at least for Georgetown, especially if it, gets them over that one more game to the Final Four at the very least. Like, that will be totally worth it. And then, you have Liam again for another season after that.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, dude, Liam Connor took 131 shots. That's a lot. I mean, and he still was second in Colgate in shots taken by like 57. Because Jack Turner took 188 shots. 3 different guys on Colgate's team took over 100 shots, which is absolutely nuts. In terms of shots per game, though, I mean, they play 18 games, so like, Jack Turner ranked 4th. Again, Liam 131 shots. Hunter Drouin took 115. Liam Connor ranked 4th on the team in Colgate with 98 shots. For Georgetown last year, 98 shots would have gotten you second. And like Aiden Carroll took 142. Then Bayman took 91. Ransom took 71. 96. Okay, second. Rory Connor's 131 would have been 11 fewer. And again, it's just wildly different styles of. I mean, Colgate is just the volume is insane. So again, am I saying 90 points? If he goes no, but I think the floor is like we're at 50. Like we're best player in the offense. Good offense. I think the middle ground though is like that could be there, like 70 points.
Jake, now getting me all hyped up. I mean, like people were down in Chris Gray. I remember I was like, "Oh, he's coming for the Patriot League." Everything. I remember all this pod. We were like, "I don't give a
like 100 Gray." There's a point.
I was like, I'm sure he's going to find that somewhere, or like be able to pass for an assist. I was like, Frenchie knows how to spot talent. Development. Maybe you can have a question about that, but I was like, he knows how to. Who's. He can get them.
111 points is just like that was the thing with Gray. Was like Gray was like, what do you gonna say that? Yeah, like
I'll take a flyer on. It's worth a punt. Yeah, exactly. Who am I going to take? I'll take the guy with the century mark and points.
The Gray thing also is like it's like literally everybody wanted him. Like he did like a 4 like 2-week tour to like Maryland, Carolina, Hopkins. It's like, all right, if all these guys won him, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And he was. I mean, he set the goal record at one point in time before it got broken like 3 different times since then. Yeah.
No, I like this. You're claiming the flag early. It's gonna be one
Listen,
of our.
I said I had to go back to the old me. I think right now in our preseason predictions, let me pull up the sheet. Just doing a little teaser. So far, Safe hasn't done his yet, but the rest of us have done our preseason predictions. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams have gotten Final Four picks. So among me, Ryan, Adam, and Chris, 7 different teams have been picked for the Final Four. I am the only person so far who's picked Georgetown. I'm going out there. I'm putting my, I'm laying my down. I think it's going to happen for the Hoyas. 2 teams have made everybody's Final Four picks, and so I think you probably can guess who those 2 teams are. And 3 teams. One other team has been on 3 different, projections. So just kind of a teaser there. But yeah, I think I got George on the Final Four. I feel sometimes you gotta go back to the old you. You gotta believe it. You gotta learn to love again. I'm willing to fly with the Hoyas this year.
I can't wait to put Notre Dame as my dark horse. Just can't wait.
Chris picked Penn State.
That is nuts.
That's about as like to the edge.
That's my Syracuse pick from 2 years ago. Look at those scratch team off.
They made the Final Four last year. Watch out for this team that played them.
No one's talking about him, Jake. That's what's surprising to me. No.
The dark horse. I say this all every year. It's the what is it? What's the movie called? Blades of Glory thing. It's like nobody knows what it means. It's provocative. It gets people talking. What does dark horse team mean? I don't know, but it gets the folks talking.
What did I pick last year? I think I picked Ohio State last year.
Is your dark horse? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. 2025. Last year, Safe, your Notre Dame. You had Notre Dame winning the championship. You had Princeton, Maryland, Cornell as your quarterfinal teams. CJ Kirsch, Torathon winner. Kevin Corrigan, coach of the year. Your dark horse was Ohio State. Mine was Colgate. Ryan's was Harvard. Adams was Penn. Win some, lose some. Actually, our picks were pretty darn good last year. I think all things considered. If you look at we can go up and down. Some years can be better than others. All right. Big East. I do think the league will be better than it was a year ago. I'm watching Denver. I mentioned them as like if there's a that kind of outside the top 20 team that could improve. If you look at Denver's their kind of metrics a year ago, that was I think a pretty darn solid team that wound up getting killed by basically the exact thing that we said at the start of the year. They were awful on faceoff. Their defense was really not. Their offense rather was pretty much identical to the offense that made the Final Four. Like really right there. Their defense was a little worse, but still pretty darn good. And goalie play was good. They ranked 62nd in faceoff percentage. Here's a wonderful illustration of the fall off that Denver had at the faceoff. Denver ranked 62nd in faceoff percentage. If I added up Denver's ranks in adjusted faceoff percentage from 2015 to 2024, it adds up to hang on, give me 1 second. So Denver was 62nd in adjusted faceoff percentage. If I just add their rank each year from 2015 to 2024 in faceoff percentage, it's 59. Denver since 2015, second, first, second, 15th, 8th, 5th, 12th, 6th, 6th, 62nd. Like they went from, just the most like secure, protected bubble you could have to just gone. And it's I don't know how you get used to that. It changes everything about how you play. Their entire style of play, everything about it was just out the window. And I think they tried for a lot of the year to play kind of sort of how Denver likes to play, kind of methodical, patient lacrosse. And I just don't think that wasn't going to work when you had that few possessions. You just had to take more chances. And that's just not who they are. I think that now I don't know. Like they got a guy from Roanoke College at the face-off that I just feel like it has to be better. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be great, but again, get to 47, 48%, maybe even 50, you're fine. And I think the rest of that team is pretty good. And I just don't think it's that far off completely. The team that was in the Final Four just a couple of years ago. They do lose a lot of production on the offensive side of the ball, but it's mostly concentrated in a couple of their, kind of main guys. They lose Noah Manning and they lose Mick Kelly. They bring back Cody Malosky and Merrick Sigornis, who are kind of like really talented young players, who I know the staff was really high on. I think I don't know. I think this is a team that they're playing a tough schedule this year. I like kind of the look of their, who they're playing in 2026. We always kind of say the way you schedule does kind of give an indicator of what you think about your team. And they play Cornell, Michigan, Ohio State, Syracuse, Duke, and Georgetown in a row. 6 games in a 5-week stretch. Cornell, February 21st, Michigan, February 28th, Ohio State, March 12th, Syracuse, March 16th. They get Syracuse at home. They get Denver at home this year, Michigan at home this year. I think there's a bounce back potential for Denver. Is it going to be NCAA tournament? I don't know, but I think this team is going to be in the top 20 comfortably by midseason. I think it's going to be a top 20 team by midseason. I just think I think that's the makings of that team were still a good team, and they just got completely submarined by bad face-off play. And I think I don't think they don't got Trevor Stathakis on the roster, I don't think, but I think face-off play improves, and I like the pieces around there that, again, NCAA tournament team, I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if I'm for quality, but I think we'll be sitting here in when they're playing Syracuse. After that, they play Cornell, Michigan, Ohio State. I think they can definitely win one of those 3 games. I think if they win 2, they're absolutely golden. Like, where you're sitting, you feel really good. But I think they'll be sitting here, 4-2, kind of somewhere along there. They blew out Duke last year. I think they go through that Cornell, Michigan, Ohio State, Syracuse, Duke stretch with maybe 2 wins. And I think we're sitting there thinking, all right, Denver's back, solid team. Like they'll pose a potential threat maybe to Georgetown, the Big East. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm going all in as like but like I rank them in my top 20. I think you rank them in your top 20 as well. I think they're going to have a nice bounce back season.
No, I feel what you're saying, especially with the program strength. Like I've been really impressed with what Brown did with taking them to the Final Four 2 years ago. I think that's one thing I was impressed by. There were some ugly losses. I'm not going to put
for sure.
Lipstick on a pig over here. For some of these, the Cornell 15-5, but everybody was getting blasted by Cornell. You losing to Yale by 5, it was a bit, and then
again, like just the total, like no Like they won 18% of the faceoffs against Yale.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah, do that. Yeah, exactly right. 27% against Marquette kind of explains a lot that 18-11 blowout at the end of the year. Now, because last year wasn't great, but I
still beat Duke
am
and
impressed that
Georgetown.
it wasn't like an entire tailspin. Like you
Yeah.
kind of seen that, especially when it's bad. Well, we're just talking about Loyola. Kind of really bad face-off play that again, I just kind of touted them because they lost 5 games by 1. But yeah, that kind of does wear on you, consistently, like kind of always kind of feeling like you're playing behind or catch up when the face-off is not going your way all year long. So if you could kind of clean that up, like they weren't like a terrible team, and like I said, kind of you never get credit for like averting disaster type thing, but like it wasn't like a below 500 season. There's the last 2 games of the year that could have even be better than the 7-7 that they finished with. I feel like I hear you, and I kind of actually really hear you now after like our first introduction to the pod where you had those great like breakdown of like preseason polling and the teams that tend to surprise or teams that like fall back that were highly ranked. So again, kind of agree with you that they're not going to be outside of the top 20, but this could definitely be kind of a back top 20 team that makes a run back to the tournament. And what has been that long since both Georgetown and Denver made the tournament together. So like could be a return to form, especially again. I think more faith about the program itself than what last year indicated. Like, oh, this is a team that's on the come up. And I think Brown, was a great coach for the program and just really good coach in general. And yeah, I can definitely see that, and kind of was just thinking that in my head while you were writing off like those stats about like preseason predictions not correlating to how teams actually finish. So yeah, I like that a lot. I like your take.
Yeah, I just think, and again, the thing I like is like the games are there for them to make a run at the NCAA tournament. Like they play Cornell, Michigan, Ohio State, Syracuse, Duke. That's such. If you get 2 of those wins, you're in with a shot. You get Georgetown, you maybe get a Big East tournament. Like you're in with a chance. If you go Cornell, Michigan, Ohio State, Syracuse, Duke, you go 3-2. You're really like you're set up pretty darn well. Now again, is it possible they go 1-4? Also possible. I don't think they're going to go 0-5. Again, like last year they beat Duke and Georgetown in a bad year. They beat Duke by 7 goals. They held Georgetown to 3 goals. Like I think that shows you like when things were able to go somewhat okay for them. Like the Georgetown game, I think is a good illustration. They won 43% of the faceoffs. They were -2 in possessions. They were in that game, like in that like the Yale game you mentioned. They had 19 fewer possessions than Yale. Like losing by 5 goals in that case is probably a good like when they didn't have the ball. The Ohio State game, like they were competitive with Ohio State. Ohio State was definitely the better team, obviously, but they were in that game. Like you said, I think it's
minus 13 in Nova, and they lost that one by 1.
Yeah, like they were just the Hopkins game, like lost by 3, -8. Like they were just not in these games from a possession standpoint, and for how they want to. And look, could you criticize and be like, maybe they needed to be more adjust things like that? For sure. But for how this program, their identity, how they want to play, I think the fact that like everything else around that team mostly held up despite the faceoff play is like again they were top 25 in everything except for faceoff play, and then faceoff play they were 62nd. Like they were a top 20 team that just never had the ball.
No, we say that a lot. Kind of about Denver. A lot, poise and playing under control isn't the sexiest thing, but when it works, it works. It was kind of like kind of what the tyranny kind of had going on at Denver. They weren't like blasting teams by like 6-7 goals every single game, but they would just kind of like do ball control, make sure they were like playing not recklessly, and then essentially kind of like choke you out when by 2 or 3 goals, but like just kind of felt like you were in quicksand playing against them. So they can return to that, especially with like just. Yeah, you always say like you don't need to be the 65-70% to what you just can't lose catastrophically in the face-off.
Yeah, like Harvard in some ways is like a best illustration of this. Dude, you could beat Syracuse by like 6 goals both of those games if you just won. They lost one of them. Like literally, the face-off play Lloyd lost you. That NCAA tournament game. Dressly, I'd like to see can Bobby kind of take a next step at Providence. I think they had a nice year a year ago. Had some good pieces. Just played Villanova close in that Big East semifinal. Closed nice, beat Marquette, Denver, St. John's. Kind of we'll see. Nova's probably gonna be Nova. Not a bad year by any stretch for Marquette, considering coaching change, things like that. Finished tough. It looked they were 6-3, and then just tough end of the year. St. John's, I don't know. That's a bad situation. All right. Save. I got one more, and then I'll leave it up to you for your thoughts. A10. Kind of, this is my other point. Fits perfectly. We've talked Patriot. We've talked Big East. We'll talk A10. Richmond is the prohibitive favorite in this league. I think probably if you were kind of ranking the favorites by league, I feel like Towson and Albany are probably really at the top there in terms of what people expect. But I think Richmond in the A10 is pretty close. I feel, as far as how much of a favorite they be to win their league. The interesting new kind of element in there is Delaware. And I'm intrigued to see what Delaware can bring to this league for this reason. If you go back just a short couple years ago, the way we're talking about Richmond right now is not dissimilar to how we view Delaware. I don't think the expectations and the hype was as much, just because Richmond plays so many top-end teams and we see them play these teams, and because they have the schedule, we kind of sort of think about what it could be like. Richmond could, maybe be an at-large type team to the NCAA tournament. But Delaware in 2020 had a big kind of hot head coaching hire when they brought DeLuca in. I think it was even more, kind of wow head coaching hire than when Richmond hired Chamati, which was very impressive for sure, considering what Chamati had done at Loyola. But Delaware hiring DeLuca was a big thing. I called it at the time of the pod. I was like, this is one of the best head coaching hires that's been made in the past, 5-6 years, because obviously what he'd done at Cornell. It took him a little bit, but he got it rolling. 2021, they had a really good team that just missed the NCAA tournament. 2022, they get to the quarterfinals. They beat Georgetown, one of the big upsets this, the past decade or so of the NCAA tournament, which Richmond has done. People forget, I would say, Delaware also played Cornell in that quarterfinal in 22, and they played them really close. I don't know if as close as Richmond played Cornell this past year, but kind of similar. That was a game in the fourth quarter. 2023, they nearly beat Duke in the first round. They had the lead in points in the second half. They had the ball with a chance to tie in the final possession. They could play with anyone. I always admired how their execution in late game situations, how poised they were, the sets they would draw up. We saw them pull off, some upsets. They were a real kind of they were right there, Richmond, maybe at the head of the pack of the mid-major programs. They had unseeded Towson in the CAA. Has fallen off the past couple of seasons. It hasn't, Towson kind of came back at them in the CAA the past 2 years. I think they just kind of got hit a bit by, the talent sort of drain. After 23, they lost Ty Kurtz, Mike Robinson. If you go back after 2024, they lost J.P. Ward, Robinson as well, the Accioni brothers, and I just think that kind of talent hit eventually sort of took its toll on them, and they haven't quite been able to get back to that level. But this was a program that was at where Richmond was, and so I'm intrigued to see. There's some staff changes that have been done. Rakowski has stepped away from coaching. The offense really did. I thought he did a great job for a long time. I was always a fan of him. But the offense did kind of fall off this past season. Maybe some new blood. Mark Beta comes in, who's an alum of the program, graduated a couple years ago. So we'll see. They still got some talent. Brendan Powers, Palmer, 33 points as a freshman. I'm intrigued to see, can Delaware, because when this move was announced when? I want to say late 2023 or late 2024.
Yeah.
Delaware to the A10. And like when it happened, it was like, oh man, Delaware and Richmond, that's like a big marquee kind of like matchup. Like that's a rivalry that could kind of emerge. Two preeminent mid-major programs in the same league. We start some with the A10 sort of the way we start with the old CAA. I want to see, can Delaware get that magic back, get that mojo back? Can they be that rival to Richmond to where Richmond's kind of had it with St. Joe's, but now like St. Joe's loses Ray, and Delaware's kind of climbed a bit higher than St. Joe's had. Like, I think if Delaware gets to where they were and can kind of, get back to that point to Luke and keep it rolling, I think the A10 really becomes this, really is like right here in this, maybe not the top of this mix with the Big East, but maybe could get past the Patriot. And I think is like a firm, one of the stronger conferences in college lacrosse. I worry that if not, and as long as Chamati stays, I wonder if Richmond just starts to kind of separate themselves a bit. And that this has maybe become kind of like, it's better league than the CAA and the America East with like kind of what Taos and Albany are doing. But you get some of that same sort of problem where Richmond really kind of separates itself. And instead of like 2 to 3 really strong teams at the top, you just have one strong team and then like a drop off. And so I think that's what's interesting in the leagues. Can Delaware get to like where they were again and challenge Richmond, or are they just kind of going to be in that high point St. Joe's, maybe this year UMass type zone? I think that's really interesting question, both for maybe this season, but also kind of long term of the health of the A10. Because I think as long as Chamati's there, Richmond's they're gonna keep it rolling.
I mean, you're right about Richmond potentially becoming a hegemon. I think just, or at least a conference hegemon, given the, Ray's departure from St. Joe's, is going to leave a lasting impact. I think, we have seen teams with like, we just, talked about, right last week about teams, have legendary coaches that, pass on and then seems to not really skip a beat, with the newest coach, but, just still something to be seen given, all the history and success Ray had. Delaware has all the trappings to be the dance partner for Richmond. Great coach, gotten even a little bit further than Chamati has, but a different school, but it's got that experience. They've tasted postseason success with him. The Georgetown upset we still talk about to this day. I think it's a perfect home for them. I think they did well, obviously in the CAA, but we kind of talked about like a little bit of a more teams coming in there. The CAA maybe lost a little bit of this punch that it had before, and I think A10 is like kind of maybe becoming the new CAA, like the way that we talked about Thunderdome. That's at least that's what we imagine that this conference could be. Hasn't taken it off as much as I thought, especially when we kind of bandied about that maybe both St. Joe's and Richmond would become like at large, hopefuls, just given the fact that the schedule allowed it, because when it has 6 teams, it can have a really good out of conference schedule. So you always had bites at that apple. Whether or not you're able to take down those teams, was left to be seen. But Richmond was able to do that last year, and we kind of see that play out and get to more postseason success. I think Delaware, bringing a lot back in terms of offense. About like 98% of their offense is returning this year. Now, there were some kind of really bad games last year. I'm just thinking about the Maryland game where they only scored 3. There was the Penn game where they only scored 2. But there's kind of like a bit of a variance in terms of like their production. They have a the greatest opponents in St. Joe's. But, they got dropped 17 there. They dropped 16 in Drexel before at the end of the season. Got 17 against Stony Brook. So like this team can like put the ball in the net. 11 goals against High Point. It's going to be a conference opponent this year. So like I think they could be competitive. Richmond's got the juice right now. Chamati's really got that program running on firing on all cylinders. So I think like it's going to be kind of a tall order to ask in the first year in the conference. Knocking off a quarterfinal team in Richmond, given especially just kind of like the motion that Richmond's has right now. But that is a team that is really like going to be a potential like thorn in Richmond's side, especially if like Luca's a great coach. If he can just like fix it's got to the cusp of like regular the like winning the entire thing. So this guy is obviously a proven winner. Reasonable, not just reasonably well at Delaware, has got like significant success, and you kind of always bank on programs and coaches. Until like it's like
you look at like DeLuca, Nadalin, Marr, Chamati. Like at that level, it's Ray, of course, when he was there. At that level, that's the coach. That's where the coach makes the difference. It feels like, you want to separate yourself. If you got to get one of those guys, that's the difference.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. Like it's going to be like a coach that can literally look at this team of the eyes and just say with conviction, gotten to this point where you guys want to get, we can return to there. We're going to be in a new conference, essentially like a clean slate. Like, and that could just be the catalyst to, again, I don't know if they're going to take out Richmond, but like I can easily see them kind of with, St. Joe's being a little bit of a different place, not having, Ray. Canella no longer at UMass. I think Kyle Smith was, a good coach to pick, and we were joking around like, Canella kind of set it up in a way so that Kyle would get the job. And maybe we can see a replay of Bryant in that Smith like just takes Canella's success and keeps it rolling, or not rolling, but kind of returns UMass to back into a player in this conference. But yeah, if there's going to be a team that I think can challenge Richmond, I put money on Delaware just because, like, again, they got the coach, got a lot returning, and just this is a proud program that has had actually more success than Richmond. In terms of like historically, and they've been around much longer, but they got a Final Four. I'd still, I put that win over Georgetown up there with pretty much any other first round upset the NCAA history, besides like Bryant over Syracuse. But yeah, I think like this is going to be interesting to see how like they adapt to A10. But I think they're going to find that this is a good home for them. This kind of perfect location in terms of like the opponents, kind of regionally. So yeah, I understand why you're feel that way about Delaware. If there is a team that going to kind of, because I feel like High Point kind of had a moment but didn't really grasp it. UMass, a lot of questions with a new coach. St. Joe's, a lot of questions with the new coach. I mean, we're going to have a whole different coach for the whole board as well. They moved on from Raymond, so it's going to be kind of an open season maybe, and that's where kind of an opening for Delaware to kind of be like that second team in the conference, and if they can make it to the A10 championship in their first year in the conference, maybe that is the first time. Maybe this is how we get the two teams. Richmond does what they're supposed to do, and Delaware kind of surprises them late, and steals the conference crown, and Richmond does enough to get in as the at large, and we finally get the two bid 8-10 dream that we've kind of been predicting for a little bit. So yeah, if there's any team that's going to kind of maybe challenge Richmond, that's I can understand why you're thinking Delaware.
All right, safe.
Prediction time.
Well, let's do A10. We just talked about it. Who is your pick to take it home, and who's the team to watch?
Kind of recapping what we just said. Yeah, take it home, Richmond. I think I just got too much faith in Chamati, and just what they got. The potential to like play a championship or the Final Four appearance in state in Charlottesville. I think I'd be a little bit added motivation. But I'm with you though. I like your case. I'm going to use Delaware as the the potential upset.
Yeah, Richmond is just too. They're ensconced now. Like the identity program is just there. They know how they want to play. They're physical. They're defensively sound. They take care of the ball. They do all the little things right. But they have guys on the offense side of the ball who are serious hitters. They bring Little John back as their big goal scorer, Aiden O'Neill. Joe Sheridan from the midfield, I think, is a real star. The most impressive thing at the end of last year is the number of guys who just like chipped in, even if we hadn't quite like heard from them. Like Daniel Pickard as a freshman scored a couple big goals in the NCAA tournament. Charlie Packard, like randomly played, scored a couple goals against Carolina. There are some key losses like Chinoy, Vigu, guys you have to replace, but I think that they're still strong on the defensive end. Hunter Smith coming back offensively, and they made without Chinoy for a lot of portion of last year. So I like everything about this team. I think it's I have them in my preseason top 10. I think it is the runway is there for them to be. I think the step for this year is NCAA tournament home game. I think that's the path. I think they can be in. I think the season they had last year flipped one or two of those really close non-con games they lost, and I think that's they have a home game in the NCAA tournament, and the schedule's just as tough, if not tougher. I think the team's going to be just as good, if not better, and so for me, yeah, it's NCAA tournament home game, and obviously you'd like to once again, be in the quarterfinals. I think that's obviously a goal. And look, I know Ryan mentioned his thing on the show a couple weeks ago is go one step further, make a Final Four. That's a tough ask, but I think NCAA tournament home game should be in the grasp for this team. Delaware's a good one. I like maybe High Point as well. A team that's got a lot of talent coming back, and that I thought played better towards the end of the year. First year, you get second year for Crawley. They beat St. Joe's twice. Beat UMass, beat Hobart. They played really well in the league, 4-2. Did lose to St. Bonaventure by a goal. So ups and downs. But like that team they were 3-6 mid-season, and they'd lost to Carolina by 12 goals. And I thought after that A10 play, they really stabilized themselves, and they sort of found an identity as a team. And so I think they're a team to be watched. It's hard for me to say anyone's really going to get close to Richmond. I think if you had to make me bet the most likelihood, they're going to go 5-0 in the league, and they're going to win the conference tournament. But I think High Point, Delaware, these are some teams. Listen, St. Joe's does have a lot of talent still on their roster, and they did go internal. Continuity can be a good thing, so I don't think they're out of the question either. All right, safe Patriot League.
This last year was just so unbelievable season after what they did, and then to slip up again, kind of similar back to back last year with the in conference games being their Achilles heel. Jake, Foley's going to run it back. I kind of see them making a return to the tournament. Got to the Patriot League championship game last 2 years. Kind of lost. Their 2022 they didn't even get to the championship game, but like I always was in the mix. Kind of fell short last 2 seasons. Didn't make the tournament in 2022. I just feel like they're always knocking on the door, and it just with Army, I just don't know if I'm just gonna get a repeat of last year and the year before in terms of just falling short in conference and just literally the worst possible way. Army's got the momentum last few years, but I don't know. I just feel BU is always in the mix, and but for kind of losing in the championship game, they'd probably be in the NCAA tournament last couple of years. So lost by 1 to Lehigh in 2024. Lost by what was that? I think they ended up there.
They got blown out
by Colgate. Well, Colgate also losing 234 points for their team, with the Connors and Turner. I had to pull out the online calculator. I was like, this is so many points.
Like a lot of points. No,
that's more points than Hopkins. Oh man, I'm gonna look that up while you do that.
Then Hopkins had total.
I
think that's probably right. Yeah, I mean, like, look, there's a lot of.
Not to make it Hopkins related, but like, looking at their stats.
No, I mean, it's just.
Russell Melendez was still like the 4th leading scorer, and he only played in half the games. Literally 7 of 14 games, and he still led the team, or was 4th in the team in points, 4th in the team goals, 4th in the team, and it was just
fascinating. It's like they had 9 guys with 10+ points. They had 6 guys with 10+ goals, which is good. Problem is nobody had more than 33. It's like there's a lot of oh, that guy had a good season. That guy had a good season. Nobody had a great season.
No.
It's like Rawson, 13 goals. That's pretty good. Eiler, 22 points. To be fair, Eiler's 22 points are entirely the back half of the season.
But 141 goals and 86 assists.
I think that might beat out Colgate by a little.
227. I think Colgate got it.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's 4 more games, and as we talked about, Colgate's playing basketball out there, man. They're like the running Rebels. They're like Loyola Marymount in the 90s. They'll be fun to watch no matter what. I'm going BU as well. You talk about they're always there. Patriot League champion 2022, made the tournament, made the semifinals in 23, championship game 24, championship game 25. They're always in the mix. They kind of seem to have Army's number. And I just think Army, the talent is there for Army, but we talk about the key positions. Lose Coletti at the faceoff dot. Some of these key spots, lose your best attackman. I don't know. I just think Army is the most talented team in the Patriot League. But I feel like the big difference they've had is they've had 2 to 3 All-Americans. And I just don't know if they have that type of talent. Whereas BU has tons of talent as well. So I think the talent level has shrunk between those two. And I don't know. We'll see. Listen, sometimes with Army, it's when you least expect it. And maybe they kind of need that a little bit. Expectations, I was off them. I think they'll definitely be in the mix again. But I'll go BU. Team to watch.
The Leopards?
Yeah, I was thinking about them. Losing to Riley Sullivan is really tough. He was definitely their big guy last year. And they had 4 freshmen behind him. It's that's just such a great security blanket for 4 freshmen, is to have a guy with 75 points leading the lineup. Now it's all on those guys. Good players, but that's a big, a big kind of hit to take, I think, for those guys. Lafayette I can see. And look, I think it's make or break for Loyola. I think if it's another below 500 season, if it's a 500 type season, if it's 5th place in the Patriot League, I think you got to start asking the tough questions. And I don't know. I've always I like bringing in Justin Ward. that was the obvious hire on the offense. Did a great job at Army. Excited to be back at Loyola. Toomey knows him. Working with a whole group back that's kind of played with each other. Can they see some improvements? I think it'll be a better season there. How good, we'll see. But I can't see. There's got to be some improvement, I think, in 2026. All right, safe. Last one. All of these feel kind of straightforward in this kind of group, which would be interesting to see if we have any kind of shake up there at the bottom. Big East, what you got?
I'm going with Georgetown. I mean, that's kind of set your clock to the Hoyas. But for dark horse or surprising thing, I was thinking of Providence and Marquette, but they really are in the bottom quartile for returning production. So I'm kind of gonna go a little bit kind of our early conversation about Denver. I'm going Denver as surprising.
Yeah.
And it's the Pio, so it's just it's not really a scrappy unknown underdog. They made it 14 years ago. But yeah, no, I love your breakdown, your analysis. I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And it's for them, they just got to get back to what they're really good at, kind of controlling the ball, keeping the pace of play at what they want. And if they're able to do that, I don't see them overtaking the Hoyas. But of any teams in this conference, kind of see them. Yeah, Villanova's always there, but really not there. It's just weird. They're 8-7 last year, but I had 149 for and 174 goals against, which is kind of crazy.
That's the most Villanova thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it really is. So it's just kind of hard to really put your finger on.
Villanova had the 5th worst goal differential in the Big East and finished and made the Big East championship.
Yeah, they went 4-1 in the conference.
They lost by 10 to Penn State, 11 to Colgate, 3 to Lehigh, 3 to Penn. They lost to Penn. 4 to St. Joe's. Lost by combined 16 goals to Georgetown. Yeah, man. That's crazy. I'm with you, Georgetown. I think, but yeah, the gap between Denver and Georgetown is not I'm high on Georgetown. We both are, but I don't think that gap is when Denver plays Georgetown. I don't think it's going to be all right, well, Denver's going to win about I think it's going to be oh, okay, this is Georgetown's test in the Big East. I think it's going to be 2 top 20 teams. It's going to be a matchup that we're used to. I said this last year. It was wild watching Denver and Georgetown last year and just be wow, this game means nothing. It's we're used to that game mattering and being consequential, and it was oh, there's no juice to this. It feels weird. The vibes are off. I think it's going to be back more towards what we're expecting. All right, Safe. That'll do it.
I love it.
Clock in under 2 hours.
Big boys coming next week. Looking forward to that.
That's going to be fun pod next week. January 20th. Look out for that one. And then after that, it's our big, I think that next Friday is our big season preview show. We're going to have Ryan with us. We're going to talk poll, talk national champion, All-Americans, all that good stuff. We're going to do that one live on YouTube Friday. So be with us. To make sure you're with us, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/lacrosseCommission. We're over 100 subscribers. You can help us get to 200 if you haven't subscribed yet. When this video goes out there, make sure to smash the like button. And if you're still with us the old way podcast, it'll be Ryan will have it up, on those platforms by probably sometime afternoon tomorrow. So take care. Enjoy the football, or enjoy the lack of football if you're safe. And get ready for lacrosse in under 18 days when you listen to this. All right, folks. Thank you, Mr. President. Stay hydrated.